Hello fellow astrologers, and welcome back to our next set of videos in our basic birth chart series, the CD2 Sara's birth chart reading. In this video, CD2GP, we'll be going over our chart interpretation of all the signs of Sara's generational planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. In our last video, we went over our chart interpretation of all the signs in Sara's mid-planets, Jupiter and Saturn. So the generational planets are actually kind of interesting in that they don't always directly affect the person as much as the other planets because they happen in more generations. As generational planets, all these planets take a lot of time before they go through one sign. In the case of Uranus, it takes 7 years for it to go from Sagittarius all the way over to Capricorn. It was in Sagittarius from 1974 to 1981. When it comes to Neptune, Neptune was in Sagittarius for 14 years, from 1970 to 1984. And Pluto was in Libra in 1971 all the way to 1984 for 13 years, which is kind of fast because Pluto has an elliptical orbit, and there's some periods of time where Pluto actually spends up to 30 years in one sign. Right now it's going to spend over 20 years just in the sign of Aquarius, and it did about 20 years in Capricorn. So it varies. And unlike the traditional planets, like the inner planets, the mid-planets, and the luminaries, these planets weren't discovered until somebody found them with a telescope. The other planets, the more traditional ones, are actually some that you can see with the naked eye. And people for thousands of years have been watching them. So they not only have an effect on the person personally, but it's more of a reflection of things that were happening at the time during the generation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the individual breakdowns for all of these. But first, let's take a look at them. Uranus is right here at 0 degrees Sagittarius, here in the 11th house. It's actually in its ruling house. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the intermediate section when we discuss houses. It also has its friend Neptune here in Sagittarius as well. It's right there, conjunct the ascendant, which is something else we'll talk later on when we talk about aspects. It's something we'll talk about in advanced birth charts when we talk about aspects. And Pluto is back here in Libra, as you can see right here. So Uranus is the planet of innovation and rebellion. And in this case, it's moving through the sign of Sagittarius, the sign of philosophy, travel, and beliefs. And Neptune's also traveling through Sagittarius. And Neptune's the planet of dreams and illusions. And finally, Pluto is the planet of transformation and power, death and rebirth, like the phoenix. So before I get into too much detail, let's go back over here and start out with the paragraph with Sagittarius Uranus, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. Sara's Uranus in Sagittarius marks a generational drive by freedom of thought and exploration. This placement awakens a visionary urge to challenge old belief systems and expand global awareness through innovation, philosophy, and travel. With Uranus retrograde, much of this awakening happens internally. She questions truths others take for granted and seeks her own direct experience of wisdom. She's drawn to the ideas that break down boundaries and redeem meaning, often ahead of her time in how she interprets knowledge and culture. Uranus is the planet of rebellion and awakening. It's how we break free from what limits us. The Sagittarius is a sign of shedding light and finding higher wisdom. So when Sagittarius is in Uranus, it sparks freedom through ideas, revolutions through truth, belief, and exploration. When Uranus was in Sagittarius between 1974 and 1981, we were in a time that was post-Vietnam, post-Watergate, a time when idea of truth versus deception came under scrutiny of the worldview. It was also the birth of home computing and early networking, hinting at Uranus's technological liberation through information and connection, because Uranus is also about technology and understanding knowledge. Because it's connected with Aquarius, it has a lot to do with knowing things and learning things as well. So people with Sagittarius Uranus belong to a generation that challenges the old philosophies and outdated institutions and narrow thinking. Their individuality comes alive when they're exploring, mentally, spiritually, or physically. With Uranus in retrograde, this urge for freedom is turned inwards by questioning their own condition and redefining what truth means to their own person, which can also manifest as an independent worldview or a natural skepticism towards anything dogmatic. This placement isn't content with believing what they're told. They want to experience it firsthand. Uranus here inspires teaching, travel, and the pursuit of wisdom that liberates. Knowledge is rebellion. The Uranus Sagittarius' awakening comes through the courage of thinking differently and inspiring others to do the same. Okay, so now let's go over here and see how Sagittarius affects Neptune. Neptune in Sagittarius gives Sara a dreamer's vision rooted in truth-seeking and spiritual adventure. This placement merges idealism with exploration. She finds inspiration in philosophy, education, and journeys that expand the soul. Retrograde Neptune turns her imagination inward, awakening intuitive wisdom and self-guided faith. Her dreams are big, but so are her desires to find out what's real behind them. When grounded, she channels the placement through teaching, art, or storytelling that uplifts others towards higher understanding. So Neptune is a planet that governs imagination, spirituality, and faith. The part of us that seeks beauty and transcendence. The dream side of ourself, of our conscious. Not the conscious self, but the deeper, penetrating part. The part that we connect to in an almost spiritual side. And with Sagittarius being a great illuminator, when you have Sagittarius and Neptune, that dream expands through exploring. It's the vision of discovering truth across cultures, beliefs, and philosophies. During the time that Neptune was in Sagittarius from 1970 to 1984, we came out of a long stretch of war with Vietnam, and we grew into an explosion of optimism, where you had films like Star Wars and Close Encounters and disco, things like that that brought community and friendship together. And the generation of Neptune and Sagittarius carries a collective longing for spiritual freedom to experience divinity directly beyond religious walls. During that time, there was an explosion of global spirituality. Eastern philosophy, yoga, meditation, and astrology became mainstream. This placement gives Sagittarius Neptune a strong sense of intuition and idealism, but also the challenge of grounding those ideas in reality. They're drawn to art, study, or spiritual practice that broaden their worldview. Anything that connects knowledge with wonder. With Neptune in retrograde, that quest is deeply personal. People with this placement are more likely to turn inward for truth than follow external systems. When balanced, they become seekers who blend faith with logic, turning belief into wisdom that others can understand. Their imaginations are boundless, and their souls feel most alive when it's exploring the infinite. Okay, so now let's move on to Libra Pluto. We'll go ahead and read the paragraph. With Pluto in Libra, Sara belongs to a generation that transforms society through the redefinition of relationships, equality, and cooperation. She carries a deep awareness of power within partnerships, how harmony and control can be intertwined. Retrograde Pluto intensifies this inwardly, prompting profound personal growth through the dynamics of love, justice, and balance. This placement pushes her to evolve through understanding others deeply while holding her own boundaries firmly. Transformation comes when she learns the true peace is not the absence of conflict, but the mastery of it. Okay, so Pluto represents transformation. It is a planet of death and rebirth, and it's empowerment through truth. Pluto in Libra works through relationships, justice, and balance, transforming how people connect and cooperate. During the years Pluto was in Libra, from 1971 to 1984, we saw things like civil rights movements and feminist waves that brought balance and fairness into cultural conversation, classic Libra themes of justice and equality. We saw the rise of relationship psychology and couples therapy that reflects humanity's attempt to heal through honest connection. The Pluto-Libra generation redefined partnership and equality. They challenge old models of marriage, gender roles, and fairness. People with this placement have a magnetic awareness of how power and harmony interact. They can sense imbalance instinctively. Their personal growth often comes through confronting control, dependency, and fairness in relationships. With Pluto in retrograde, it internalizes that transformation, with power struggles and rebirths often happening behind the scenes or with close relationships. Pluto in Libra teaches that true peace isn't just passive, it's earned through courage, honesty, and vulnerability. And when they embrace this lesson, they can become a quiet force of transformation, someone who heals through connection and not conflict. Okay, so as we sum up all these planets together, we learn that the generational planets speak to the larger waves of time, the social, cultural, and spiritual climate that shaped an entire group of people. Where the inner planets and the mid-planets describe our personal evolution, these outer giants describe our places in the collective. Where Uranus and Sagittarius gave the generation the courage to think freely and question the old worldviews, to chase knowledge across borders, cultures, and philosophies. And Neptune and Sagittarius added the dream, a vision of spiritual freedom and global unity, blending belief systems into a shared search for meaning. Pluto in Libra brought the transformation, a generation reshaping love, fairness, and equality, teaching the world that harmony was built through truth and not avoidance. These energies formed the cultural backdrop of Sara's early life, the air she breathed, the ideas she inherited. Her generation's mission is to heal division through understanding, to connect intellect and compassion, and to turn change into cooperation. Together, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto gives this generation a collective voice, one that reminds the world that truth, love, and balance are not a separate path. They're one journey. So that pretty much sums up the generational planets for Sara. Stay tuned for the next episode, CD2POI, where we talk about Sara's points of interest. We'll talk about her North Node, part of Fortune, Midheaven, and Chiron, where destiny's purpose and healing meet to show why she's here and how her soul's story continues to unfold. And if any of you are interested in expanding and taking a deeper dive on any of these topics, you can pick up this PDF from our Patreon, where you actually can do a deeper dive by clicking on these links to Google, which tells you more about Sagittarius and Uranus, or just Sagittarius or Uranus separately. And if you'd like, we have another series of videos from our fundamental series where we actually go over these topics. You can click on these links here to see that. Or to watch this video, you can click this link right here. We hope you have enjoyed this video from our Astrology Keyring series. If you like the content, please like, follow, and share with your friends. Thank you for watching and have a blessed journey.